right, everybody, happy Thursday. Welcome to our week 7 design challenge reveal. I hope you all had a great Valentine's Day and happy Mardi Gras if you celebrate Mardi Gras. I enjoyed my king cake. I also enjoyed a nice night out on Valentine's Day. Had some good Mexican food. You know, I live here in the Tucson area, so there's plenty to choose from. Hopefully all of you guys are doing well today, and I hope that weather that's hitting the Northeast isn't too bad for those of you that live there. Nice and sunny day here in Tucson. Going to be up to 70s today, so I'm very excited to go out for a walk. It's been cool for the past few days. We had lots of rain the last couple of weeks, which we need, but it's been a little cooler than normal. So today I am going to share with you my project. I'm actually going to show you how I made it and discuss some of the design choices that I made. Had an interesting draw this week that was a little bit challenging. I want to remind you, I'll flip the camera over in a minute, but I had to work with stretch cord on making a pendant. So there's lots of options. You know, I thought about, well, I could just string some beads on a stretch cord and make a ring, but I didn't feel like that would hold up very well over time. You know, with these challenges, sometimes we can have a little fun, sometimes we can make something a little crazy, but I still like to make something that's functional and that somebody might actually use or wear. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Normally, I probably wouldn't put stretch cord in my in a pendant, but I did think about ways, you know, like maybe just making some dangles with stretch cord, you know, sort of like hanging it down like a tassel. Then it's not a structural element in my pendant. I didn't end up going that way, but that was one of my options that I thought about. And I do think if you truly really wanted to, you could just make a small circle of beads and hang it on a chain, and that would count as a pendant. I also did not go with that option. If you were going to do that, I would definitely recommend thicker stretch cord. If you're using stones or something sharp, I am not a spokesperson for any of these brands, so just so you know. But elasticity is a little thicker, it's coated. If you're using sharp stones or sharp metal, I would go with that. But think about the fact that if you're hanging it over something, if you did do a ring and just hang it from something, you're going to get a lot of wear and tear on that elastic, and eventually it's going to break. Stretch Magic is also one that I use all the time. Stretch Magic comes in lots of different thicknesses, so does elasticity, but Stretch Magic tends to be a little thinner, a little more fragile. But anyways, with the design I'm working on today, I think there's very little wear on the elastic. You know, unless you're one of those people that is messing around with it a lot. But let me get on with reminding you what our challenge was, and then I'm going to show you how I made this week's challenge. So our challenge was to make a pendant. We had to use stretch cord in our design, which was the real challenging part. We had to use upcycled or leftover beads from other projects in our design, which is not a problem. Use gold beads or metal in our design. And we had to design something using primary colors, being yellow, red, and blue. So the yellow, red, and blue, along with the having to use something from other projects, led me to just pull out my bead soup. I didn't have what I would consider a primary yellow in my bead soup, so I did pull those out of my stash of seed beads. This is just I just happen to have a bunch of small beads. I mean, you could have used big beads. There's nothing in our criteria that says we have to use small or large beads. I just happen to have a bunch of small beads in my bead soup, so I went with that. This was about a 6-inch long circle, so I would recommend, you know, using at least one bead that's big enough that you can pull your knot through. So when you're knotting your cord, you again want to use a surgeon's knot. You want to make sure that cord is is real tight so that you don't, you don't pull it apart, because we are going to stretch it a little bit. And you can consider gluing it. In this case, I didn't. And don't forget to pre-stretch your cord because it will stretch. But I will show you in a minute how I ended up using this. But these are the beads that are going into my project. So I wanted to make something that had a little more stability to it. So I started, since it was Valentine's Day, started looking at hearts, and I was like, I did put this small piece in here with 4 beads on it that is on stretch cord that connects to the top and the bottom. And then I was going to put some more beads around it. But when I did that, it didn't look right. I had to back it all out. And, it basically would have just hidden the elastic and not made it actually part of it. Then I started thinking, I'm like, well, maybe like a puzzle piece or something that has edges that I can, attach things around. So this is a wire piece that's sort of puzzle piece shaped. It's kind of hidden by the beads, but basically I took the circle and, stretched it around there in various directions through the holes. And I'm going to show you what I ultimately ended up doing, but that was just kind of one of my options to play with. So what we're going to do is make the main part of our pendant. So for that, and to get my gold requirement, I'm going to use gold wire. In this case, I'm using, it ends up being artistic wire because it happens to be the only gold wire I have at the moment. But we're going to, it's my only gold wire in 20 gauge. Sorry, did I say 18? It's 20 gauge wire. I'm going to cut about an 8-inch piece, should be fine. You don't have to be exact. You can always just cut off the wire at the end if you have too much wire. But as as many of the designers say, you'll hear all the time, it's better to have more wire than not enough wire because it's really hard to add it at the end. So I'm going to use my bail pliers. I like to use the 12 millimeter side. And what I'm going to do is, grab that wire between there, and I'm going to wrap it around, and I will try my best to keep this on screen and keep it in focus. Hey Elizabeth, thanks for joining me today. And then I'm going to end up making this circle twice. So I want a doubled up circle as tight as you can around here, but it's not going to make that much difference, so if it's super tight or not. But anyways, so now I have this doubled up circle of, again, my 18 gauge wire around my 12 millimeter. And again, that 12 millimeter is not a requirement that you have to meet because it's really up to you. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to use my flat nose pliers, and I'm just using the one width of the pliers, and I'm going to make some V's. In this case, I want to make 7. You want to keep it kind of close here, otherwise it's going to get a little out of shape. But bend that up, bend that down, and hopefully I have enough wire, and I'm not sure that I did, in which case we may have to cheat and do this again. I think I must have used 10 inches of wire before, but so I like the look of this if it has 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 of these pointed
pointies. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, one more. And yeah, I just barely made it. Okay, so I would recommend if you make this to maybe use about 9 inches of wire, just so you have a little more to play with. So we will eventually, that will turn into our hanger for the bail. But once I have this, you know, it's a little loose, but you'll see we kind of have a star going here. So then I'm going to take some thinner gold wire. In this case, I have 24 gauge. I believe it's 24 gauge that I'm using. And I'm just going to, basically, I just want to attach this, the points to the circle. So wrap around. You can use your pliers to help you. I didn't measure out this wire, but again, like 8 to 10 inches should be adequate. It might be too much, but again, better to have too much in your, as you're working, than not enough. So basically, for each of these, between the points, where it's nearest the circle, I'm going to do a wrap twice around. And then I'm just going to go to the next, reach over to the next one, wrap through, again, twice around. It's helpful if you go in the same direction. The wire, especially this thinner wire, will sit closer to the circle. And you can adjust these if they're not, you know, before you get them in there too tight, to make sure that they'll all fit around the circle. But again, just 2 wraps is good, because it'll hold it on there pretty well. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to type them in, and I will try to see them and answer them as I go. I will say I have some very old gold 24 gauge wire, and it's kind of stiff, but it works. It gets there. And you could wrap more if you feel like it, but I will show you when we get to the end that it doesn't matter, because it just needs to be structurally together, because you're not going to see it once we have finished putting all our beads on there. So I may have to adjust this around a little. Oops, bent that. All right, let's bring this one back a little. Lost my point here. Trying very hard not to get my fingers blocking everything here. But all right. So we come around the second to last one. And again, we'll do that twice. And then we come back up next to our straight wire. And that should be our last time. And again, you can trim this and tighten it here. I like to kind of wrap it around this straight wire a little bit, just so that I have some more decoration here when I do my loop. But, you know, it only needs to be done a couple times. And then I'm going to pull my original one very tight and trim it. So that was my starting wire. And then this one goes around the top wire here. I'm just going to trim that close and then use my pliers to just kind of tighten that up so I don't have sharp edges sticking out. Because you don't want sharp edges. So, see, now I have sort of a sun shape with the straight wire sticking out the top. So, at the top, I'm going to make a wrapped loop to hang it off of whatever we're going to hang it off of. So, then we bend that, make loop. Again, you want to kind of make the wire, bring the wire around the pliers rather than use the pliers to do your work for you. You have that loop there. And then this gets a little tricky because you have points in the way, but you can bend the wire around them. Just get a couple wraps in. And I'm going to trim that. It's not a beautiful wire, but hey, you know, I'm doing this live, so. And again, you want to tuck your ends in. I need to wear different glasses when I do this because it's hard to see. All right, well, let's just assume that I've tucked that in. So now I have a star, which, you know, you could just use something like this as a pendant if you wanted. I'm going to tighten it up a little bit, or you can make that longer, but since I didn't cut enough wire, that wasn't an option for me today. So, and now you have the choice. You can hammer it a little just to firm it up. Make sure those ends don't bend, because we want it to be fairly stiff. You know, if you had 18 gauge wire, you could certainly make your frame out of 18 gauge wire. I didn't have any 18 gauge gold wire, so I chose to use the 20, which seems it's enough for this. So again, then I just firmed it up a little so it won't give. But so now what we're gonna do is, like I said, we have our elastic thing. So we are just going to wrap it around and then, you know, stick it over another one. You just want to make sure you get it through all the loops, right? So, and you don't want to overstretch, but you, because again, your elastic is kind of fragile. And you know, you could certainly use a longer piece than I did. I actually don't like the way it's wrapping around here right now, but I can always take it off and start over. So one of the things I thought about after I made this too is that, you know, it also allows you to make a pendant that you can change out the colors on, because you could have multiples of these little elastic bands in different colors and just change them out with different outfits. Alrighty, so there we go. Yay, that was a little better. And like I said, you can continue to adjust this as needed to get the look you like. Here's my original ones. So now I have a pair. Yeah, I could even make these into earrings. But anyways, that is how I chose to make a pendant. Again, using gold, using stretch cord, and designing in primary colors. So if you like this project, please like the video, make any comments, share as you want, but I hope you'll enjoy this project and see that it is possible to use elastic cord in making a pendant and make something that won't get a lot of wear and tear, because really, as you're wearing this, the elastic should not be getting much pressure or scraping along it, so it should stay pretty it should stay together very well. And if not, you can always make a new little wraparound and or change out the colors as you want. So that is our week 7 design challenge reveal and how to make it. I hope you enjoyed today's project, and hopefully that'll inspire you guys to not throw out a card when you think it might be more of a challenge, but there are ways to incorporate things in. Again, we want the Bead Stash Challenge to be fun. I have no rules. You know, if it says to include a crystal and you don't like crystals, if you include one crystal, that counts. Just make sure everybody can tell where that crystal is so that they know you achieved the challenge that was set out for you. I will be back on Sunday for our week 8 drawing. We're also nearing the end of the month, so please post your products in our your projects in our Bead Stash Challengers. Get in on the monthly drawing. We will have we have card holders. And we will have other options if people have already won the card holders. Please also join us. I think Monday we're going to be doing the drawing with Stars Beads on the Stars Beads page. In the Bead With Me, which runs at about 3:30 Eastern Time. So please join us there. Excuse me. Please like and follow Desert Cat Creations. We want to see all your Bead Stash challenges. And again, thank you all for all your support. And hope that you're having fun with your cards. And there will be more to come in the future. So I will see you all on Sunday and hope you have a creative couple of days. Bye.